American Heart Association, and welcome to another edition of Passion for Health. So today we're going to learn about labels, because when I go into a grocery store, I know nothing about labels. And we have our special guest here today, and she's going to tell us about herself and about labels.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here. Hi everyone, my name is Allison Stowell. I am a local dietitian and retail dietitian, which means I assist people in the supermarket, as well as work with people one-on-one in an office and do a lot of writing about food. And I'm excited today to be here and try to debunk some of those myths and questions and confusion that happens when you try to read labels in the supermarket.
Okay, and I understand there's also been changes in labels, so where do we start?
Okay, so I think the first thing is that I know that when most people are shopping, they're in a big rush and may not have time to read the labels, but unfortunately it's one of those critical things that either we need to have already decided ahead of time what we're going to be purchasing that day. If you're in a rush, maybe foods that have already been screened, if you will, for your home. Otherwise, you're going to need to take the time to make sure you examine things before you put them in your cart and bring them home, since that's your opportunity to make sure you're creating a healthy home. So reading the label is really important.
And that can be difficult when you have children in tow, right?
Yeah, for sure. You know, nowadays there's so many ways, and we'll be speaking about a few of them I think today, but there's so many ways to make that part easier, from doing your shopping list in advance and looking at websites for supermarkets or examining things ahead of time, so that once your kids are in the cart, it is faster.
So pre-planned shopping, that's what it really is.
Yeah, absolutely,
Very
absolutely. So I guess we can get started. I'll start by asking you a question.
Okay.
I'm going to try and stump you.
All right.
What do you think is the first thing you should look at when you're looking at the food label? What's the very first thing you should always check?
Personally, I'm always checking sugar and sodium.
Sugar and sodium. Okay, if I had other people in the room, I'd ask them too. The very first thing you should always check when you're looking at a food label is the serving size.
Oh, okay.
Always. Those are excellent things to know, and you absolutely want to know sugar and sodium before you eat something. But unless you know the serving size of an item, then you don't know what you're working with. Today we're showing some labels while we speak, by the way, up on the screen, so everyone's getting a sense of what I'm talking about. But looking at that label, which is looking at the serving size on that label, which is located at the top of the label, is critical because of a few reasons. One, a manufacturer could package something that looks like it's meant for one person when really there's 2 servings in there. Oh. I was just speaking with someone earlier who was trying to make me believe that the iced tea bottle he was about to drink wasn't going to be that bad. It was only 100 calories, but then I had to tell him there was 8 servings in there, and that would be 800 calories. So you want to always look at that serving size as the very first thing. To your point on sodium, though,
okay.
If you don't know the serving size, you could accidentally consume way more salt than you intended, especially with like a marinade or a sauce or something like that, or any sort of condiment kind of thing. So the serving size is definitely the first thing you want to look at.
Now,
know what you're working with.
Is some packages where it almost looks like there's more content than there really is in the package, so knowing what the serving size is would be valuable in that?
Sure. I mean, I think about chips, for example, that are maybe in the front of a supermarket, sort of in that grab-and-go section. Someone comes in, they're grabbing a sandwich for lunch or something, they're going to pick up those chips. They think that's the 1 serving they're supposed to have with their meal, but it could be 2 or even more servings in that bag.
And that's where you're impulse buying, right?
Yeah.
When you walk in there, you're like, oh, there it is, let me get it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
So first we're going to check that serving size. From that point, there is all those there's all those things that are going to be unique to you as a shopper that you want to check, like your sodium, as you mentioned, your salt. And then there's also other things that I think we all should look at that let us know if a food is going to help us stay full and give us good energy, how much protein is in that food, what type of fat is in that food. Those are the things that you want to check.
Okay. So now, if I were to pick up a box or something like that, because everything's packaged so nicely and differently. So depending on the manufacturer, they might have the information on the front, on the side, on the back.
Right. Well, so a little insider scoop for you right now, sitting with your dietitian. So anything on the front of the package, which is what's facing you when you walk down the aisle, this is primarily owned by the manufacturer. There are certain claims that they can make here only if they're approved. There's your American Heart Association symbol.
Okay.
That has to be certified by the American Heart Association. But the label's always going to be on the side. And there's always going to be the information you see there in bold with fat and sodium, etc. And then alongside of it is the percent daily value.
All right, so let me just ask you this question. Are all these labels regulated where they start off with the same information on top and then we work our way down?
Yes. they're all regulated to look like this.
Okay.
It's up to the manufacturer how much vitamin and mineral content information they want to provide, but the information on the top is all regulated. The place where it can become confusing is that the serving size isn't regulated. So if you're flipping over a bunch of cereal boxes, it's hard sometimes because some of them may be at 3/4 of a cup, some of them could be 1 1/4 cup or something like that. It could be hard to compare apples and apples.
Right.
We'll talk about some tools on how to do that in a little bit, how to make that easier. Now the percent daily value is the percentages that you see there alongside of each thing. I'll let you take that box so you can examine it.
All right.
The percent daily value, which we're showing right now in yellow, this is based on a 2,000 calorie diet and how much of each of these nutrients, the percentage of it that you're getting that you would need in a day. To clarify that further, if someone were consuming 2,000 calories a day, the product that you're holding right now, Dave, would give them about 2% of their fat for the day. Now, the benefit of it is that you're getting some information, but what isn't that helpful is that most of us are not consuming 2,000 calories a day. So they had to come up with a number to use, just a basic caloric intake, but many people shopping in the supermarket right now are not consuming that many number of calories, or they're consuming more. So
So
the
are we
percent daily,
are most of us consuming more calories than less?
most of us are consuming less than 2,000 calories a day.
Really? I would have thought it.
Depending on how active we are, certainly some people may be more in the 1,600, 1,800, but I mean, younger people or active males, obviously could be exceeding that. Some people could be far exceeding that. It just completely depends upon how the energy needs of their day. But what's important to realize, though, is that the percent daily value is very helpful for the vitamin and mineral content, since that's the same for all of us, regardless of our physical activity, age, gender, things like that.
Right, right. I don't know, I guess it was my impression because we have such an obesity problem in the country that people are consuming more calories, but that's not necessarily true.
Well, we may be consuming more calories than we need,
Right.
and that's what's contributing to that.
Okay.
Yep.
So what else on the label should I know about?
So getting back to your comment about sodium, if someone is following a low sodium diet, the percent daily value may not be that helpful for them either, because they're having to do less than the average. So in that case, the milligrams are really helpful. And in the case of what you're holding right here, this is 90 milligrams per serving. So if someone were following a low sodium diet, or I think on the screen we're showing 160 milligrams, depending on the portion size, 160 milligrams, that could be potentially 1/10 of someone's intake of sodium for the day. So if that 160 milligrams is coming in a teaspoon of marinade that you're going to need several teaspoons on, and then you're going to add a seasoned rice to whatever dish you're making and all that, you could see how the sodium could really add up quickly. So I think for anybody following a low sodium diet, looking at the milligrams for your sodium is really far more valuable than the percent daily value there.
And it doesn't matter if this said sea salt or regular salt, it's still the same.
Sure. Any salt, no matter what type it is always 40% sodium. You may get a slightly different taste out of them, but they're all going to be equal in their sodium content.
Because I think psychologically people say, oh, it's made with sea salt, it must be better for you.
Yeah, no.
But not necessarily. Okay, interesting.
I think that might be, that could be also because the media, I think, sometimes confuses that for people, or,
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, I just want to clear out those myths.
Yeah.
Okay, so now what else? Potassium, obviously, and then as we go down, we have some fiber.
Sure, and we've been speaking a lot right now about these numbers and the things located toward the top of the label, but then there's also all the ingredients. And I also brought with me today this wheat bread, because I think this is one of the places people get confused in the supermarket, is in the bread aisle. This is, it says on the front 100% whole wheat.
Okay.
So we know that this bread that I'm holding right now is a whole wheat bread. If it just said wheat bread, then that's a sign that you want to flip it over and always read the ingredient list. And the reason for that is because unless the first ingredient on your whole wheat bread or your whole grain crackers, anything that you're looking to have as a whole grain food, unless the very first ingredient indicates that it's whole grain, it is not truly. It's an enriched product.
And exactly, that actually happened to us. We brought home some whole wheat pitas, and we were eating them thinking, wow, this is great, they're really good. But then when I read the label, realizing they were not,
Right.
I was actually angry and disappointed.
Yeah, so just because it's wheat bread doesn't mean it's whole wheat bread. And you want the first ingredient to say, in this case it says stone ground whole wheat flour. It could say 100%. If it's a rye bread and you want it to be a pure rye, it would say 100% rye bread. The other indication is in the protein and fiber. If it's very low on either of those, you're going to know you're not getting 100% whole wheat bread.
Right, right. Well, this is good. You should actually be able to teach people to be food detectives, because you
Yes.
really need to be a detective to understand what's happening here.
Right. Well, okay. And so to your point about all the things you're trying to keep in mind, there are some new tools in the supermarket nowadays to make that easier. I mentioned earlier that most supermarkets offer an opportunity to make a shopping list on their website, so you can examine things ahead of time and look at the products. I also suggest, to make it easier, if you see a commercial for something new or you read something new in a magazine, going on the website for that product and looking at all this information when you're just comfortable in your home and you have time. And then in the supermarket itself, we have a rising trend on shelf tag systems. And shelf tag systems are information where there's call-outs or information hanging on or below a product
Okay.
to let you know if it's a good product for you. And different supermarkets may offer different ones, but essentially what they're doing is they're pre-screening everything for you, and they're weeding some of the products out that you may not be intending to pick up. So they may call out the ones that are better for you. The one we're showing right now on the screen, this uses a 1, 2, or 3 star method. This one's called Guiding Stars, and with this program, as you go from 1 to 3 stars, you're getting more vitamins, more minerals, more fiber, more whole grain, less of your unhealthy fats like your trans fat, which we should all be avoiding, less saturated fat, less added salt, and less added sugar. So when you go from 1 star to 2 stars to 3 stars in the supermarkets that offer that, you know you're getting a good, better, or best for you item, and all that thinking that you're thinking about, my sodium and my sugar and all, it's been done for you. You just aim for 3 stars.
And then once you get the particular items that you like best, you already know that they have everything you need.
Right.
So now, do the food stores, I guess this is a good marketing thing because it makes it easier for the customer to come in and get out faster and get everything they need.
Yeah.
So that's beneficial to them, and then beneficial for ourselves because we now don't have to think as much and we can get in and out faster.
Right. I mean, the Grocery Manufacturer Association has also developed a program called Facts Up Front, which actually you could see here on the bread, where they call out some of the information on the front of the package so that as you're shopping down the aisle, if you don't have time to turn packages, you can see that information right up front. And I want to make sure our viewers know today that the information that we're talking about and links to learn more about all this, I have it all on my website.
Oh, great.
So if any of this is confusing or you want to see more about it, you can go to my website and get that. That's stowellnutrition.com.
I always find it's important whether people are learning CPR or life safety situations. As long as you have a place to go and resource the information and then be able to speak to someone, then you just make better decisions all the way around.
Yeah. Well, that's my job.
All right. All right. So what else do we have here?
Well, I just brought these cranberries because it has the Facts Up Front information, and to point out that even though it just looks to you like cranberries, when you read the list, you see that there's way more there. And I brought this can of diced tomatoes. Again, the stars are right there. So if you were shopping in the supermarket, you would look for that and you'd see that. But you'd also notice then that it's the no salt added. So that's just an example of how that's working for you.
Right. So that's pretty important. So with all the different packaging, and now with dried cranberries, they have just as many nutrients as fresh ones, or?
Yeah, I mean, in this
or
case,
I would have to read the label to know that.
Well, and they're in order to be in this format, they're affected a little bit.
Okay.
They're sweetened.
And what about frozen?
Frozen fruit or frozen vegetables just as good for you as the fresh. And when you pick up a frozen vegetable, you should see that that's literally a single ingredient, and that's all that's there.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, this is so interesting, and whoever thought that buying food would be so complicated, but yet we're now coming to a point where we're making it easier for the consumer.
Yeah.
And we have so many more consumers and so many larger grocery stores than we ever had before. That's for sure. And that's, again, with the people going and impulse buying and they don't get a chance to read the label, that's where they're going to get themselves into trouble, obviously.
Right. Now there's a lot of tools to help you avoid that.
And there's a lot more dietitians out there who could help us out where we didn't have that before, right? Because we only thought of a dietitian being in a hospital or some other setting, but now they're accessible for us to be able to use.
Yep. Most supermarkets, if they don't have someone in store, they'll have someone online to help you.
Which is great. Great.
Yeah.
All right, so let's just wrap it up and revisit everything that we talked about?
So I'm going to ask you now again. What's the first thing you're going to look at on the serving size? Oh, sorry, I gave you the answer. What's the?
All right.
You always want to check the serving size
Serving
first.
size, absolutely.
And then read down that and remember that as a shopper, you're wearing a lot of different little hats. I like to say, am I watching my heart health? Am I concerned about how much protein I'm getting? Take the time to look for all those things on the label.
Right,
so
and you're
you know.
buying for other people too. Husband, wife, significant
Yeah.
other, children,
Yep.
your pet.
Keeping all their needs in mind.
Exactly. Wow, this has been another great show. Every time I do this show, I learn more and more. I can't wait for the next one.
Good.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
So.